Let's start as we will be doing sense organ today. Okay, and basically we have these five sense organs, and I think in class ninth you have studied regarding skin and all that in detail, little bit.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so in this chapter we will be focusing on eye and ear, and uh, as I was referring the details given according to your textbook, it's good, but still it is little bit. I found them little bit incomplete. I will try to arrange them and make sure that you will understand them clearly. Okay, and see to this that let's begin first of all. So. If I say this. Hmm. So, sense organs, five we have, but we are concentrating on eye and ears. And what makes them sense organ? First of all, a little bit of introduction part is there according to your book, that why these organs are called sense organs. Why not the other one are responsible for doing these activities? It is just because of a special type of nerve cells that they will be named as receptors. They are designed accordingly for to identify these senses, and that's why these five sense organs are very much sensitive to the work assigned to them. Okay, so if I say that if we talk about the types of receptors according to the sense organs, then five receptors that are listed according to your book, they are first one is mechanoreceptor. That means the one which identifies any type of pressure change on your skin. Okay, so that is the one that means anything which is mechanically happening to your basically the skin part. It is called mechanoreceptor. Then you have the another one that is with relate where you relate your skin with it. Then you have the thermoreceptors. So these are the types of receptors you are studying. Okay, so mechano, thermo, both of them are very much active at the skin level. Okay, so because temperature is also easily identified by just a simple touch of skin. Okay, so pressure, temperature, or anything which is physically hindering the skin will be identified by these receptors, and they are widely placed under your sense organ, and they are just a special type of nerve cells. That's why these organs are called sense organs. Okay, then you have chemoreceptors. These chemoreceptors will are present in your tongue, in your nose. So these are the two regions where they are present, because uh, definitely all the things you eat, the first chemical reaction starts at the level of your tongue. I think digestion, as you have studied, the digestion starts from your mouth, and the tongue is the one which identifies it, the taste, the texture, everything. Whatever you are after visualizing, whatever food is in front of you, that will be in direct contact with your tongue. So first chemical change comes up over there due to saliva and all that. So it's a chemoreceptor. And nose, because definitely I think we all have this experience that when we smell the good food, the your, especially the favorite one, or unexpectedly, if someone is cooking your favorite dish, suddenly if you walk into the house and if you find that your mother is cooking in the house, the one which is very favorite, it will bring that your mouth will be filled with little bit watery, or with lot of saliva that will be happening. The reason is, it's just because you are smelling the thing without watching out. You are just have a little bit of smell, and that will lead to the chemical reactions which will do all these activities in your mouth. So chemoreceptors will be there. Then you have photo and phono, both the receptors. Photo for eyes and phono for ears, that will identify the sounds. Okay, so these are the five types of receptors that are being listed in your book. So that these receptors are responsible to make these organs as a to assign these organs as a sense organs. Without these receptors, these sense or these organs will be considered as the ordinary organs as the others, the way you have the other organs similarly. Okay, so but that sense title is just because of these receptors. So that is, I think you must be aware that in olden age, when the people are very much old, they lose that sense of taste. Basically, this happens to them. They don't get the taste very easily. Or the somebody who is having the habit of chewing tobacco or smoking and all that, they will also lose these receptors very soon. So you must have seen those people, they must be having so much of salt, so much of chilies in their food. They will ask for more. Uh, some people will ask for a lot of sugar. Sometimes they don't identify the taste of sugar, the level of the sugar in the food. So they will ask for much more additional thing, just because they lose this receptors due to some due to the age, or the some bad habits they are going through. That means these tobaccos and alcohols and all that, all these things can lead to this damage. Understood this?
Yes, miss.
Okay. And as nowadays we are very much techno people, and these so-called earphones and headphones, as we are in lot of contact with them, and you must have heard about so many facts about them, that continuous use can increase the uh, number of bacteria in your ear and all that. That's definitely the true one. But the thing is, if we will be following the same type of pattern of our lifestyle, we will all be uh, losing the hearing ability soon, because uh, you will experience this once your school will be regularly started. Just because I think if you are using headphones right now for all the online classes, okay, and you are hearing your teachers very closely right now, but once you will be in the classroom and it's open, some students will suffer to identify the words which will be spoken by teachers in the open class. That problem will be arising from some of the students. It's not for all. There may be the possibility that it can happen to some of them. Okay, so this is the thing you have to understand. So uh, let's see that as we are concentrating on eye and ear today, so let's start up with the eye first of all, because little bit complex structure, and uh, many of the layers will be overlapped one after another. So that is what you have to understand first of all. So I will draw the structure over here so that you can get that diagram. I think it's in your textbook, it is given very clearly. But if you want to understand the layers, just have that a little bit of sketch of it so that the layers will be clear to you. Okay, so let's begin with the structure of eye first of all. So we have so many layers regarding eyes. So the first thing that we will be understanding regarding it is the diagram. I will begin with the diagrams over here, diagram right now. Then we will be concentrating on each and every layer, that how it is functioning. So that will be I think it will be easy for you people to understand that how it is being situated and all that. Okay, so let's see, and just relate that whatever I will be drawing, it looks like eye only, just a human eye. And because I will be drawing little bit out of proportion to make you understand. So if you have a good laugh on it after the class, then you can have after reading it. Okay, so let's start with this first of all. So basic structure of eye will be having some layers and some definite type of thing. Let's see to this that okay. So you have this first of all. So the one definitely your book will be starting with that orbits, eyebrows, eyelids, and tear glands. That will after this structure, the diagram, we will be following that also, so that you can relate each and everything if somebody asks you about the eyes. Okay, so I will be having some different color first of all. So, so if this is the bulging which you are drawing for your eye, then you have some layers like this. Okay. So this is what will be the case. Then it may not be as similar as it is shown in your book, because they have drawn it very in a very nice manner it is given. I am just making this attempt to so that you can understand it clearly. uh, when you will be reaching to class 11th and 12th, at that time you have a much more detailed structure for this. So I will be following some of the parts of this. are not explained in a very detailed manner according to your book, but we will be trying to clear them as much as possible according to your need. Which color should I? It's this one. Okay, fine. So here I will be labeling the basic layers first of all for you. Okay, so let's start with the one that is the first layer for our eye is the one that is called uh, conjunctiva. Okay, so this is the first layer, transparent one, covering the whole layer of covering the whole eye, which is we can be seen outside. Okay, so that is how it is being present. Then you have the one that is called. Let me leave it over here. This one that
Miss,
is
which one is the conjunctiva, the red one or the blue one?
red one because I don't have that another color. That's why I have used it. Conjunctiva. Conjunctiva is the red one. That's why I have written it with red only. Whatever the color is of the layer, similarly I have written so that you can
Miss, but
understand.
that conjunctiva layer only covers the bulging part of the eye, na?
Yes, that's what I will be telling you because it will be covering the inner side of till the eyelids also it is going on. Okay. And
Okay,
if
miss.
bulging is also bulging is definitely covered, but it is followed till the inner side of eyelids.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So that's what is there. Then you have I have to very much choose you regarding the colors right now. Okay. Then this then you have let me write down this first of all. Okay. Then you have this one that is ciliary body and sorry, this is your nose and like this is called choroid. Red. This is called sclera. I don't know this part is mentioned in your book or not. I will come up to that afterwards. Okay.
Miss, which one is
So,
the blind?
okay. Come again.
Miss, I was telling which one is the blind spot. I cannot
The,
understand from.
okay. That's what I will be explaining now. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the region where is the blind spot is formed, and how it is formed and why it is called blind spot, that we will be studying right now. You can see some special type of notch over here. I don't know if it is mentioned in your book or not, but that is called fovea. Okay, I will come up to that level after this once the I begin with the explanation of these layers. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so let me start with this first. You just see, you have a very good diagram in your textbook. You can refer that also. This is the one I just tried to make you understand, and you can draw this if it is being asked in the exam for 1 or 2 marks. It should not take too much of time to draw, so that's why this type of thing you can sketch out if it is there in your exam. Okay, so let's see to this. First of all, when we talk about the layers of the eyes, then so if we talk about eye, the first one, the outermost, is called conjunctiva. Okay, so the one which is the transparent one, and it is very much thin, in that texture is very smooth, and it is completely thin, and it basically, if you talk about the cornea region, at that region it is covering that, whatever it is covering, the outer bulging, it is single layered. And later on you will study that wherever when it is going inside the eyelid, till where it is finishing of that the whole covering, uh, at that portion it is little bit thicker as compared to the region over the cornea. So that's why it is written, the it must be explained in your book that over the cornea it is single layered and transparent, while when it is going inside it is comparatively thicker uh, than that region. Okay, it's not like very much, or it is having a double layered or three layered or four layered, it is not like that, but comparatively thick. The just understand that the way you do the lamination of any of the document, so wherever the document is there, the layer is very much thin, and single layered is there. Okay, but when you are enclosing it from the sides, there it become little bit thicker, because you have to seal that area. So wherever that is ending under the eyelids, it is doing the sealing part. So that's due to that sealing, it is comparatively thicker over there. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so this is how the conjunctiva is present, and
Is that conjunctiva, miss, this conjunctiva layer, as you have shown in the diagram, as I can see, miss, in the bulging part, it is in the outermost layer. But when we go for the inside of the eye, it does not remain the outermost layer.
yeah, it because
It goes
uh,
inside.
yeah, it the way it fuses with the muscles and all that. So that's why it is not like the outer one once it is inside.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so that is what is happening. So when you talk about the basic structure of eye, you have that explanation regarding orbits, that you know that in the skull you have a definite space for the eyes. So that space is called orbits. Okay, and outer side, if you see, you have eyelids to protect the eye, because these eyelids are the one which uh, show the continuous movement, and these due to this movement only the eyes can remain moist, and they are relaxed, because if the eyes are continuously open, then the muscles will be continuously contracted. Okay, but because of blinking, for a moment the muscles are relaxed. So that's why this blinking is very much important. That's why especially to the kids it is instructed that you must have seen the kids, basically the one who is 6 year old or 8 year old, in that age group. When they watch out the TV, they just don't blink for if their favorite cartoon is coming on the screen. Have you watched them?
Yes, miss, it can be.
Yeah, they will not blink for means longer duration. They will not blink. They will just keep their wide open, and they will watch out for the TV continuously. So that's why it is being said that to the kids that the continuous exposure to the screen is not good. Okay, because open wide open eyes keeps the muscles contracted. Your muscles will be continuously contracted, and that leads to uh, your eyes will become tired because of that contraction. So naturally you have this blinking facility by the muscles, so that your muscles will be relaxed just because of this. And you have eyebrows that also do the such function like protection of from so many things, like if something is coming from your head like water, or you are sweating a lot, it will not directly come to your eye from your forehead. Your eyebrows will be the barrier for it. Okay, so these are the outer structures you have to understand. Then very important one is the tear gland. I think you have studied the skeletal system, okay, in class 9. You have that whole skeletal system. In that you have studied that you have skull bones and facial bones.
Yes,
You
miss.
remember? Okay, but for class 9, actually if you will go through much detailed in class 11th and 12th for bio, then you will understand that the facial bones have one special bone that is called lacrimal. I will write down over somewhere over here so that it will not overlap with that these years. So you have a lacrimal bone. Okay, so this lacrimal is nothing but in English it is tear. So that bone is called tear bone. Okay, so as a bone is there, definitely muscles will be there. So you have some of the muscles over there. These tear bone and tear muscles are responsible for releasing out the tears whenever required, or whenever sudden situation like emotional
Where is this
situation
bone
changes.
available?
It is I will just let you know that it is if these are the eyes. Okay, so you have nose over here. So here somewhere you have a lacrimal bone somewhere here. Okay, and that is inside the skull. If you watch out these
Okay.
that they are called invisible bones. Some of the bones are also invisible if you classify them. Because you don't have the names of facial bones in your syllabus in class 9, that's why I just
Ma'am,
informed you. Yes dear.
ma'am, sorry to disturb you, ma'am, but I have to leave now because I'm having a test today of history from 7:15, and I'm one
Oh,
minute late.
okay, okay, fine, Ayush. You can proceed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, fine. So that is called the lacrimal bone, okay, or tear bone. Similarly, you have muscles attached to that, and that is called lacrimal muscles, nasolacrimal muscles. That is how, because near the nasal region they are present. They are called nasolacrimal. Okay, and they will be releasing. They have so many flushing chambers through which the tears will be coming out. Sudden strong smell, or sudden physical hurt to your nose, that will also produce the tears. Okay, or sudden emotional change will be also bringing out the tears. So these bones and muscles are helpful. They are helping out at that situation. So this is how these lacrimal muscles are present inside your under your eyes. Just remember them. So this is the basic thing. Explanation is given according to your book. So after this, let's begin with the basic. What actually the whole eye is made up of. So first, outer one is called conjunctiva. The outer means the one which is actually not the layer of the eye. It is just the covering which protects the eye. Okay. If you read some of the books, it is not even considered as a part of eye. Say just the way you have the epithelium at every each and every organ coverings.
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, this is also the covering. Okay, so it is not classified as a the part of it, but you have to understand that it is the first one which covers, and it protects from so many infections and all that. Basically, many people are suffering from conjunctivitis. So the first attack of virus and bacteria will be coming up to this layer, and this layer will turn red in color, and that is a defense mechanism it is creating. It is red in color, it will produce tears just to wash out that virus or bacteria. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss. Miss,
Okay.
does it get transmitted through watching into the eyes of a person who has conjunctivitis? Miss, is it
Not
true?
no. Actually, if you look into somebody's eyes, that is a myth, basically.
Yes,
Okay.
miss. That's what I was thinking, that it's a myth only.
Yeah, it's a myth. It's not actually true. But the thing is, if you're somebody who is suffering from conjunctivitis, and if you are sitting very much nearby to that person, so what happens that because that person is continuously that is unconsciously it is happening to him or her, that that infected person will be touching his eyes with the finger or his uh, handkerchief or something like that. The one if he is wearing these glares or something like that, that is also being sudden it they will be adjusting, and all these things they will be doing. So what happens
Yes,
that yes, these virus and bacteria will be coming to their fingers and on their hands, and if they are touching the surface wherever you are sitting, and you are also in contact with that surface, then you have the chances of that contraction. Otherwise, looking into somebody's eyes will not, definitely is not the thing. But yeah, looking into eyes causes little bit of feeling of irritation. Sometimes you cannot see them directly. That thing can be there. Is it clear to you?
that is a mental perception, na?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
irritation
that
feels.
is a mental perception that you will have, that that you are also feeling that itchiness
Yes,
and
miss.
all that. Okay, so that's just mentally you are feeling that, but that is not the case. Yeah, physical contact with that person, like touching their hands or using their things, whatever they are using, that can lead to the infection.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, so this is you have to understand. So uh, basically three layers are there in the major layers through which the eye is divided. So first one, if I say, is called sclera or sclerotis, I think in is given in your book. So that is considered as the outermost layer of the eye. Okay, so sclera is the one. If you read the whole structure of your eye, inner ear of sorry, inner eye, then the first layer will be the sclera, and it is the outer one, and it is white in color. The one which you see, the your eye, when you open your eyes wide, the on the sides you can see the white layer, creamy layer. that is called sclera, and it is made up of a lot of connective tissues, basically the fibrous one. Okay, so tough fibrous connective tissues are present in there. So just remember that presence of connective tissue makes them whitish in color, and this presence of this connective tissue makes them a little bit solid, as you feel them. If you try to touch that portion, you will feel that it's bit solid because these connective tissue are fibrous and it is tough. Is it clear to you? Or the layer which on which you can see so many nerves sometimes in some of the people eyes, those who have big eyes, you can see the clear nerves also on that. So that is called sclera. Is it clear to you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that is the thing. And this sclera, when you see it clearly, that this when this sclerotic layer bulges out, and it becomes little bit transparent and it covers the colored part, that colored part is called cornea. Okay, so it is on basically on the same level. If you dissect the eye, if you just cut the eye in a section, then you will understand that they are almost at the same level. You cannot differentiate it very much clearly. But these scale,
Overlap.
yeah, they are just like overlapped on each other. This sclerotic layer, that means this whitish part become transparent when it is coming to this black region, and this black region is called cornea, and at that area it becomes transparent, and it covers that colored part. The sclera will cover this colored part of your eye, and that is why cornea can be transplanted. That can be done. Cornea transplantation is facility is there, because some people is having a defect in the cornea only, so that transplant can be done very easily nowadays. Is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am. This
Okay,
is eye
so
transplantation only, cornea transplantation.
no, it's another thing. The whole organ, if you are transplanting, that's a different thing. If you part of it you are transplanting, that is different.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so basically cornea is the transparent part which becomes colored at the center, that you should remember. So this that is how they should be classified at the same level. So first should be the sclera, then you have the another one that is called choroid. Choroid it is the middle, I will write middle layer of your this wall of eye. It is the middle one, and it have the basically the pigment, and the blood vessels, a lot of blood vessels and pigment are present in them. Basically the pigment which is present in Indians, it is black. That's why Indian majority of the population is having these black eyes. But you have some of the exceptions like gray or blue or brown. That is you will understand then at the time when you will study about the genetics, okay, in detail. So that you will understand why the some different colors are coming up when you talk about this. And this pigment is nothing but the one that is called melanin. The way you have in your skin, similar pigment is present in this. And this uh, layer, choroid, is will be further, if you see, it is being followed by ciliary muscles or body, I will write. And I will write the one next, that is iris. Okay, so that part you have to understand, because right now whatever you are watching is inside the eye also you are studying, and outside the one which you look from the outside, that is also you have to follow. So it is not like some other level of the eye is being created outside or and inside something different is being followed. So when from inside these layers are coming up and they are forming some specialized structure when you are talking about the eye, outer region of the eye. Okay, so that means from inside they are coming, and from here they are having some modulation to form this basic structure. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so let's talk about the first ciliary body. This ciliary body will be having two types of muscles. Here you can see that one is very much dense, that is circular muscles, and the one which like threads you can see. These are called radial muscles. So two types of muscles you have over here. That is circular and plus radial muscles. These muscles are very much important to everything. That is, we will talk about that how these muscles will be helping out these iris and further the further pupil and all that, that you will understand. So these muscles are generally they are called suspensory. I think this word is not given in your book. I am just writing it so that you can understand. Suspensory ligaments, they are named. I think you understand the word ligament.
Yes, miss. Bone to bone.
Yeah. So it's yeah, that attachment bone to bone, that is called ligament. But here it's a suspensory ligament. You suspended, the one which is suspended. It's like hanging. Okay. So it is these muscles are bit hanging in nature, and they are very loose and very flexible, and that helps this iris and further, which is followed by pupil, so that they can change the its shape and size according to the vision. So basically what it does, these radial muscles will widen the pupil, and circular muscle will help in the contraction. Okay, so that is how it is functioning out. The whole iris and this pupil thing will be doing this part. Is it clear to you?
Iris is the miss. Iris, as seen from outside, it is the small black region in the center.
Yeah, the small black region. I think you must have seen on the television also, that when the doctors are just doing this, giving the light on directly on the eyes, then sudden change you can see.
Yes, miss.
Okay, actually it is
Miss, the
composite function of further we will talk about retina. It's not only the iris, it is composite function with the retina and the lens and all that. But you must have seen that the movement, the dark part will become smaller or wide or something like that, you have must have observed.
yes, miss.
Okay, that we will be watching out right now. So after that this iris and pupil, then comes that is called lens,
Miss, I
definitely.
couldn't understand which part is the pupil. Miss, iris we can see, cornea is the middle one, and the sclera is the white part. But pupil,
See this, can you see the space between this?
yes, miss.
That space is classified as pupil.
Okay, miss.
Okay,
Miss, is there
so
any function of the face?
uh, function of what? Pupil.
Yes, miss.
Yes. So this pupil is functioning because it is here I have created it as a space, but it is definitely a one layer like thing. It is like that, and you must have seen if from the front side, if you see the eyes, then you can have these types of thing. You can observe. Have you seen it? If I
Yes,
draw
miss.
the
That was
only
what I
this
was.
much. Okay, so all these movement of these muscles and all that, it is just because of the pupil.
Okay, miss.
Okay, so that is what you have to see. So after this pupil, this we will talk about lens, most important, because it is also made up of connective tissue, and they are it is highly proteinaceous in nature. It is completely purely made up of protein. First of all, do understand that. That's why the doctors suggest younger kids to eat the green vegetables, uh, to supply the proper nourishment to the basically the lens, because lens should not be diseased at a very younger age, because that is a very fragile part of your eye. Okay, and most of the generation is having these specs and all that. The reason is this protein is not cared properly, and genetically also it is being little bit weak if they have the history of the weak eyes in the whole family. So this is the reason. It is basically because it is made up of protein, and protein are directly related to the DNA. That's why the lens are very fragile part of your eye. Understood this?
Yes, miss. Understood.
Okay, so this is basically, if we talk about some basic characteristics, it is just the way you have crystals. It is very much crystalline. It is transparent and flexible. uh, if we say that transparent, flexible, I think you must have seen that contact lenses that are available in the market.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so because it's a fashion nowadays, people change the color of the eyes according to the color of their clothes. So in movies, all these things happen, and that is followed by so many people also. But this the particular, see the way they apply this contact lens, at that time you cannot say that they are applying that lens on the pupil or the cornea or what. It's just on the darker part they have to just place that particular structure. Is it clear to you?
Anywhere, miss.
No, on the darker region they
Anywhere,
have
miss.
to
They can place it.
no, as it is actually practiced, the way it should be placed very much centrally on this region.
Okay, miss.
Okay, so basically it's a crystalline, it's transparent, it's flexible, and very important, it's it is biconvex. Okay, so if we take out the lens in on our finger, it's biconvex in nature, and highly made up of protein. So that is very important part of this lens, because if you go for this that is called for the specialization after MBBS and all that. This one is the one which is the most researched one. Okay, so that is very important regarding this. Then yeah, basically now see this. This is the outer layer, that is we studied sclera here, and then we studied choroid. But lens is not given any type of level. No outer, no middle, no inner, nothing like that. Lens is kept as a separate one, and the innermost layer after this, I will write here that innermost layer, okay, is called retina. So that is why the eye is bit the way you see it two dimensionally. You cannot say that this is the outer, inner, and this is how the classification is bit complex. Okay, so that is what you have to understand. So retina is the part which is considered as the innermost one, and this is the one which is sensitive to light. Okay, so this is the one will help you out to identify day or night. Okay, so sensitive to light, because the reason is it have two types of cells in it. One are called rod cells, another one are called cone cells. Okay, so these two types of cells will help this particular layer to identify the light and to identify the color. People who are suffering from the color blindness, they have defect in this region. Okay, so let's see this, that how this thing is working out. So this one is rod cells are having a special pigment that is called rhodopsin. Okay, this rhodopsin is a very important pigment that is present in it, and this one is helping you out in the identification, just the that it is a dark or it is a bright environment you are right now you are watching out, and that is what the function is for this rhodopsin is. It doesn't have anything which identifies the color, because the whole color identification process goes to the cone cells. Color identification. Okay, while rod cells are responsible for brightness and dark or dim, that is what they will identify. So color identification belongs to the cone cells, and they have the special pigment that is called iodopsin, or visually violet, that is also a different name for it. Okay, and these particular pigments are responsible for everything. That means if you are able to identify the difference between light blue, dark blue, violet, purple, and all these things, if you can differentiate, because these are all the, if you talk some ask some common person, then for them they are all the shades of blue. For basically I will just let you know that for boys it is very much difficult to identify the colors, but for girls they are very sharp. The reason is they can give you the difference between the different types of pinks, different types of reds, different types of blue or yellow or something like that. They will give you different shades. The reason is the cone cells genetically are very much sharp in females as compared to males. Understood this?
Yes, miss.
Okay, because I don't know if you have a sister, then give them the different sets of red color. She will tell you that okay fine, this is a brick red, this is orangish red, this is little bit on this side pinkish red. This is how she will classify. But if you have a brother, just give them the color of set of reds, and they will say what is their different is all are red in color. That's how the boys will talk. So don't feel offended, because it's all genetically it is designed like that in boys and girls. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss.
Okay, fine. So these are the rod cells and the cone cells. Now see this, that these rhodopsin and iodopsin is have a very special function, and a very special mechanism also, when they are how they are performing, and how these how they identified that it's a night or it's a day, bright light is there. So just understand that first we will talk about rhodopsin, that when there is a bright light, what happens that let me write down this, rhodopsin present on the rod cells helps in bright and dark difference. Okay, so rhodopsin is the one which is responsible for this. Just understand that this rhodopsin is a combination of two types of pigments. So what happens that whenever you face a very bright light or in at the daytime, for the whole day, this rhodopsin will remain splitted into two types. That is okay, two pigments made up of scotopsins, okay, and another one retinal. So this thing happens when there is a bright light is in front of your eyes. Understood? So there will be the splitting of scotopsin and retinal from the rhodopsin. Understood this?
Yes, miss.
Okay, and this when this splitting occurs, the nerve cells, that means these photoreceptors will give the nerve impulses to the brain that it's a bright time light is in front of your eyes and it's a daytime, and they will remain splitted as till the time you remain in this bright light only. So they will be like this till you remain in the bright light, and once you are in a reach to the dark room or the darker region or the region where there is a dim light, at that time what happened that this rhodopsin will be resynthesized. That means there will be the combination of scotopsin and retinal. They will be again combining with each other, and again the rhodopsin will be formed. So they will be combining, and they will give rhodopsin again when there is a dark or dim light. So I think you must have experienced that whenever you face sudden brightness, suppose if you are sleeping at in a dark room at night and someone opens the light in the room, your eyes will not be opening suddenly. Have you felt that?
Yes, ma'am.
Reason is because first of all, uh, because your brain is actually programmed for that darkness. So at that time the rhodopsin is formed in your in this particular region, that is retina, and you mentally you are in that phase that the whole room is dark, but suddenly when the light is there in your room, suddenly if somebody switch on the light, then what happens that these rhodopsin will have that mental signal that okay fine, the light is coming up and it has to split suddenly. So that duration, at that time you will try to focus your eye muscles. You will just open your eyes slowly, not widely, suddenly they will be open, and these muscles will not allow your eyes to open suddenly because of these splitting only. Once the splitting is done due to the exposure of light, then your eyes will be normally observing all these things. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss.
Okay, and similarly if you interchange the situation, that if you are sitting in a very bright room and suddenly if there is uh, a power cut or power off is there, so sudden darkness will be there, and then your eyes will be trying to adjust according to the that uh, darkness. So for a moment you will be blind, and then you will visualize the things slowly. Have you experienced it?
Yes, miss. After some time, after 5-10 minutes, we can see everything clear in the darkness also.
Yes, so because once this that these combination of scotopsins and retinal takes place and it completes the whole chemical reaction, at that time you will be again visualizing the whole room, and you can at least identify that where are the objects are being kept. Is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is how this rhodopsin is functioning in our eyes, and just this is how it identifies the brightness and the darkness. And if we talk about these cone cells which contains iodopsin, in future when you will study in detail, then you will understand that these iodopsin have different shades of pigments in them. These cells, cone cells, have different shades of pigment, and that pigments, the just the way you have the spectrum in the rainbow, similar spectrum is there in these cone cells, and that will give you the picture of each and every color. That means difference in the red, blue, green, yellow, and light, dark yellow, light green, yellow, green, light green, dark green, blue, light blue, dark blue. These differences will be given by these the spectrum which is present in your cone cells. Understood this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is how these are present. And then you have one special region that is called blind spot, as you were asking me. So this is the region where the all the nerve receptors that are present in your eye, these nerve cells, whatever are continuously parallelly going running through this region, they will just coming up and form a bunch, and they will from this exit they are going to your brain. So this region is the place when none of the cells are present, no rod cells, no cone cells, nothing is present. That's why this region is called blind spot. Is it clear to you?
Yes, miss. Now it's clear. Means we can't see anything at that spot.
Yes, at that spot, no image, no light, nothing will be formed, because that at that place only your these nervous tissue, axons, endings, and all that are running, and they are reaching to your brain. So it's just the way the girls tie up their hairs on their head, the way they tie up the ponytail. So all the hairs are at in one bunch, in one group, coming out of it, and they are just hanging. Similarly, these nerves are also coming out that region, and they are having forming that bunch over there. So no cone cells, no rod cells, nothing will be for present over there, and that place is called blind spot.
Okay, miss.
Is it clear to you? So and another thing, that you have this depression I was saying, one important depression, and that is called fovea. Okay. uh, this phobia is a very special area which have only the specialized cone cells, because some these now understand this part, that some people have a very intense observation regarding colors and all that, because their phobia is very well developed, and these cone cells they are very much sharp at these place. So because lot of cone cells are present in this phobia region, so what happens that so many photoreceptors are there present over there, and all of them are formed as a bunch, and their endings are also going through this blind spot only. So at this region, if people have the very well development of these cells, then they have a very sharp identification of the colors. Is it clear to you?
Okay, ma'am. It's clear.
Okay, so this is how these thing is present, and this is how you should understand. I will just show you one diagram. Only the This is the diagram only for retina. Can you see this?
Yes, miss. I can see.
Okay, so this diagram is only for the retina, especially retina, not the whole eye. It is not showing the whole eye. So just see that it have cones and rods arranged in it, and it have so many layers like pigmented epithelium, photoreceptor cells, then bipolar nerve cells and ganglions and all that. So this thing is the way the whole retina is being designed. This is that is why it is so powerful to visualize almost the three-dimensionally or four-dimensionally, or you can watch out the things in all the directions easily just because of these types of arrangement. Is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay, so that is what you have to understand. And just for your knowledge, I will let you know that the ratio, the proportion of rod cells and cone cells, the way they are present in our eye, that is in retina, that rod cells and cone cells are present 20 is to 1. That out of in front of 20 rod cells, only one cone cell will be there. Is it clear to you?
Okay, ma'am, yes.
It's just a number, just extra part. You should understand this. Okay, so
Okay.
this is how this the whole retina is being designed, and this is how it is being programmed. And the whole eye, the your whole eye is divided into two cavities. That part, that means two chambers. That outer one, the smaller part, and the inner one, which is the wider one. So that part you will be writing uh, chambers. Two chambers are there, and they are called. Uh, First one is called aqueous humor, and other one is called vitreous humor.
Yes, humor. Yes, ma'am.
Aqueous humor and vitreous one.
These are the chambers of the retina only.
No, whole eye.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so I will just mention you this that this much part, whatever chamber is created by this is aqueous one, while this is the one which is the vitreous one. Is it clear to you?
Still, the lens is the aqueous humor.
Yes, outer one is the aqueous one, while inner side it is vitreous one.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, now you will basically, if you mention it very precisely, then it is the interior one, and while this is the posterior one.
Posterior one. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that is how you can define it. Another thing regarding this is that about this aqueous humor and vitreous humor. Uh, so it's a smaller region, smaller part, and it is between. I will write lens and cornea. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's between lens and cornea, and it protects our eye from everything, like any type of physical shock. And the if too much amount of light is there, it refracts the light suddenly, so that your eyes will not be damaged because of the brightness and all these things. So that is how the aqueous humor is functioning, while the vitreous one is the one which is present posteriorly, and it maintains the whole shape of your eyeball, and it protects the retina also, and your nerve endings and all that. So that is being protected by these vitreous humor. And one more thing I will say, that vitreous humor, I think it is not given in your book, but just you have to see this, that vitreous humor, once it is formed, the way once you that means your eyes are formed in the womb of your mother. So once this vitreous humor is formed, it is formed for the whole life. Okay, so it will be permanently, it will be staying there like that only. So it is once formed, it stays permanently. So do remember that.
Yes,
But
can
the
you repeat the function of the aqueous humor?
yeah, the aqueous humor is constantly changing.
Okay, ma'am.
Changing means because it's just the way your tears are coming out. Similarly, this aqueous part is also flushing your eyes continuously, and that is why it is changing continuously. It is like it refilled or recharging is done continuously. But for vitreous humor, once it is formed, after once you are born, your eyes are being designed, and they are all everything is structured and formed. Once this vitreous humor is there, developed, it will be staying for the whole life. Understood this?
Yes, miss.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so that is what about the chambers is given. So I think
The
this much
function of
is,
vitreous humor.
it protects it maintains the shape of your eyeball beta.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, it maintains the shape, and it is a little bit thicker in nature, and it protects your retina, it protects your nerve endings, it keeps them moist, everything is done by it.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, this is how it is functioning.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So that is what is about the structure of eye. I tried to compile it in a shorter way and easier way. If you read it, if you don't understand anything, just ask in the next class.
Surely, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, okay, fine. So after this, we will be studying regarding that defects in the eyes and all that, that will be
Yes,
following,
Mrs.
and then the
Myopia and all
structure.
that.
Yeah, that's a very easy one. So
Yes,
that we will be seeing, and then structure of ear.
yeah. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.